The following presentation, Makers and Shakers, is presented by the City of Flagstaff and APS. Sponsored by Compass BBVA, Poba Medical, AWD Law, Sunwest Bank, Alliance Bank, W.L. Gore and Associates, Gentera Enterprises, and DPR Construction.
Good evening. I'm Scott Hathcock, and it's my pleasure to host another evening edition of Makers and Shakers, a week-long virtual event to educate and celebrate both startups and aspiring founders. Tonight, you'll get to see two very different video pitch submissions Moonshot has received from earlier this year for their own Moonshot startup ideas. Following these pitches, we will drop in on a conversation I had with Flagstaff's very own serial entrepreneur, Dan Kasprzyk. I absolutely love his thoughts on minimizing risks, and I can't wait for you to get to know more about Dan's journey. Right after the interview with Dan, we will go live for some viewer Q&A. So remember, to participate with questions or comments, all you have to do is email us at info@moonshotaz.com, and we'll address your questions on air. All right, are you ready? Let's mix it up, settle in, and hear from a few entrepreneurs who are shaking up their own industry.
Hello, my name is Tim Kinney with Kinney Construction Services. We're located right here in Flagstaff, Arizona. We build healthcare projects, and we build them in northern Arizona as well as around the country.
Hi, I'm Chris Petroff. I'm with DPR Construction. We're a technical builder with a specialty in healthcare construction as well. We're one of the nation's largest healthcare general contractors. Today, Tim and I are here really to share with you some of our best practices that we've learned as entrepreneurs within our organizations. Tim?
Perseverance is extremely important for the success of your organization.
One point I often like to share with entrepreneurs is that you may know your business or your service or the product that you're building really well, but do you know your customer? Knowing your customer is key to the success of any organization. Knowing what they like, their buying patterns, and if the product or service that you're selling is going to suffice their needs.
Knowing your limits and knowing how hard you're going to have to work, your resources and your financial abilities, all of those are extremely important for the success of your organization.
Embracing failure is a tip that I love to share with entrepreneurs. There are going to be moments in your path where you're going to come to dead ends or you're going to come to block walls that are in your way, but don't become discouraged. Thomas Edison took 1,001 tries to invent the light bulb. Those first 1,000 tries he had, he failed, but he didn't look at it as failure. Rather, he looked and learned from the failures that he made and how he needed to change the light bulb in order to succeed. And on that 1,001st try, he had light. Now go start something.
Hi there, my name is Ganhee Lee. I'm one of the founders of Catalyst Space Technologies. Our mission is to drive forward the innovation and change the status quo when it comes to space operations. Our founding team is a group of tight-knit engineers that met during the undergrad days of engineering school. We come from a DoD background with a lot of cross-functional experience on a variety of aerospace systems in the defense world. And we've also got previous hardware startup experience, and we're listed inventors on awarded hardware patents. Let's talk about space for a moment. We're seeing a huge resurgence this decade and next. We've got big numbers at play, $250 billion of planned satellite manufacturing. Space was relatively quiet for a long while since the Apollo days of 1970. But now, with SpaceX and their reusable rockets, they've totally changed the game. That's opened the door for new innovation and new business plans that were previously not feasible due to the cost of getting to space. But if you think about it, rockets are only one half of the equation. That's how you get into space. The other half of the equation is what do you do when you're already in space, and that's the satellite domain. Unfortunately, those satellites are virtually unchanged since the 1970s. They're still single-use disposable items that can't be upgraded in any real way. And that's a very different story when you think about a similar technology from a similar time, computers. Those were developed in the 1970s, and over time we've standardized the interfaces and made things modular. Today, you can plug in a webcam, or more memory, or a specific sensor through a USB port, and that allows the user to adapt the device over time to match the needs. Wouldn't you expect that $250 billion of satellites would have something similar in place? It turns out that they don't. The problem with these current operations is that we're just behind in this kind of development. The really only way to upgrade your capability in orbit is to launch a whole new satellite, and that can take years. The problem is that the design, the production, and the testing takes 5+ years and costs up to $600 million at the top end. And so you end up having to operate the satellite for a really long time to get your ROI. So we have this bottleneck where the space capabilities are consistently lagging behind those on Earth. And when you consider the exponential growth that we've had in the last 20 years, this really starts to become a huge problem. So our solution is threefold. First, we're going to design, build, and sell operational satellite platforms. These are ground-up satellite designs made to be modular with upgrade in mind from the start. Second, we'll have new module development. These modules you can think of as upgrade accessories for the operational satellite platforms. And lastly, the service and upgrade, how the actual installation of these modules happens in space autonomously and robotically. The routine maintenance and upgrade needs to be very easy to access. Altogether, this puts together the Catalyst ecosystem. And we can take a look at that a little bit more in depth here with a typical service mission, where you see a reload vehicle bringing components up to a service vehicle, and that service vehicle then visits target satellites to do the service and upgrade that's necessary. And by doing multiple satellites with one service vehicle, it allows us to spread the cost across multiple customers or multiple customer assets, making it much more feasible economically. This ecosystem has strong lock-in effects for our customers. So that's all great in theory. But what does that actually look like when you look at the numbers? Well, in a case study, we applied our theoretical model and found that we were able to reduce costs for a target customer by 51% over 30 years. That resulted in $3 billion of savings. Next, we were able to reduce the time in half from the technology selection to the deployment of that technology on orbit. And lastly, our operations hit profitability in 24 months once we got going. Let's look at the market opportunity. Morgan Stanley anticipates the market will grow from $330 billion to $1.1 trillion over the next 20 years. And the majority of that growth will be driven by startups, doing things that we can't even think about today, using technology like ours that drives things forward. Wrapping up here, we've gotten some strong recent momentum, including key validation from target customers as well as industry experts. Some of those experts have even joined our advisory board. Next, we've gotten provisional patents filed on our core technology, and we've grown our team to 5, with the next hires identified and letters of intent signed. And lastly, our contracts. We have numerous contracts pending with federal government agencies that are in review and pending award. Key takeaways. The Catalyst team is looking for the right strategic partners interested in bold growth that will help shape the future. Our team will grow to 27 full-time members by the end of next year to help execute on this strategy. And our products will fly in space in 2025.
We are Material Mind, the company that will revolutionize materials research and discovery. What are materials? Materials are the basis of what everything is made of. They can be things we use every day, such as rubber and plastic, or they can be the copper and silicon building blocks of microchips. Or they can be more exotic, like the rare earth compounds found in the batteries of electric vehicles. Whatever the case, our ability to create things is based on finding the right material for the right job. They say that whoever controls the materials of the future will hold the world in the palm of their hand. How are new materials created? Currently, materials research is done in much the same way as it was 100 years ago. Scientists from academia or industry start with a set of materials that they analyze. A selection of those materials is made into samples, tested, and if one should prove useful, then that material can be incorporated into a product like a smartphone, energy generator, or even a rocket ship. The problem is that this process takes a lot of time and money. Scientists can't afford to look at every material, so they make educated guesses, which means that sometimes they miss things. Between the high cost, long lead time, and limited success rates, companies can falter or fail because they didn't get the right materials to the market on time. Material Mind has the solution. Unlike the old method, where companies have to make and test many materials, Material Mind starts with a large sample set and applies AI to comb through the possibilities and uncover the relevant materials. We identify the best candidates for the job far more quickly, cheaply, and accurately than before. Let's look under the hood. We start with a dataset of possible materials for a commercial application like next-generation computing technology. For this, we will need materials with a property called the spin Hall effect. You can see that there are many thousands of materials to sort through. Our AI system quickly analyzes each material, looking at the underlying physics and advanced effects, utilizing our proprietary curated database. Our materials discovery engine provides a rating for how well a material is suited for the application. Finally, we return a small set of best materials to be fabricated and tested for experimental verification and implementation. In this case, 4 materials out of more than 8,000. The end result for our clients is a major reduction in cost and a huge acceleration in bringing their products to market ahead of their competitors. This is the Material Mind advantage.
So 1985, you graduate from ASU. And then through the year 2000, you were in the young corporate mindset of climbing the ladder, getting information, learning where you want to play, learning about the industry. And the industry is, in general?
Medical device industry.
Medical device industry.
And really for me, the key was that 1986, 1987, when I just randomly landed at a Bay Area medical device startup company developing balloons for the treatment of coronary artery disease, and the company was called Advanced Cardiovascular Systems,
okay,
better known as ACS. And we were a group of, and I didn't realize it at the time, but we were a group of several hundred entrepreneurs that were all in their 20s, early in their career, that were working hard to create these balloons that were rapidly introduced into the market. So our product introduction cycles were really rapid. So we had to move fast. We had to really learn the startup theme, because we were many of us fresh out of college, many of us with PhDs. I certainly wasn't one of the PhDs. And bunch of smart young 20-somethings that just worked hard and understood the value of accurate, precise product introductions, and then learn. But I think the other thing is that I worked with some smart people, and I would start to see some of these smart people leaving. Just randomly, people I work with leaving to go at the time, and I was like, how can we lose this key talent and these key people? Well, they were kind of following the startup scene within the medical device industry, which was robust in the late 80s. And a lot of
Silicon Valley in the tech, you have this in the medical device.
In the medical device, it was robust. So these smart people are leaving, and they're going to startup companies. And I was focused on projects, and I just wanted to complete my projects. And I got to work closely with Duke University, and we're developing ways to deliver energy from balloons, which had never been done before. And I frankly had no clue what I was doing, except I was able to collaborate with enough people that I made friends with inside and outside of work, and I was comfortable going to them for information when I needed help. And I love to solve the problems, but I would much rather find the expert who could help me solve those problems quickly, and then get the product on the next path, whether it's preclinical or full commercial launch. So that was a key piece, because I would have never guessed that. And I wasn't looking for a startup. I wasn't looking for a big company. I was just looking for a damn job.
Right. And so, but this is primarily in the R&D space, right?
This is pure R&D, pure conceptual, working with clinicians that have just crazy ideas about where they see patient treatment going in the next 50 years. And we're young engineers, and we get to help them solve and navigate through that path. So that was, that was in a lot of ways, that was the best and the worst thing that ever happened to me was landing in the Bay Area at a startup at 20-something, because it teaches you and it gives you that taste in your mouth that you just can never get rid of.
Right. And the people that are leaving are going to start their own new...
Yes, a lot of them start their own companies, going to a venture-funded startup, an angel-funded startup, a clinician who has an idea and he just wants these couple guys to come and join him, and they're going to have to bootstrap in their kitchens or their garages for a while, but so you're seeing these people just sort of exit, and it never really sunk in at the time because I wasn't on this rapid path to entrepreneurship or business ownership or whatever you want to call it. So it was just more observational that you're seeing people, and then all of a sudden I think your psychological mindset is like, okay, well, wow, if they can do it, why, what's keeping me from doing it? Right. So, but along the way, every key loss was replaced with someone who was just as capable. Right. And that's how the company kept growing, and I think it was the first company to achieve $200 million in revenue before their 5-year birthday. Oh. This is using balloons to dilate vessels. Nobody even knew of a stent at that time. It was just, how do we deliver mechanical force inside of a vessel to open it up to reestablish blood flow and prevent heart attacks and all the other stuff that was going on. So, and then it was these rapid iterations of the products for different user groups or different clinical needs, and then it just mushroomed into a massive company that became Guidant and then became Abbott Vascular today. So it's, multi-billion-dollar company doing incredible things for patient care. And that was the other piece, is that when you study bioengineering, you're this balance between engineering and science and medicine, and that's what really just drew me. That's what I was really drawn in by initially. And it's landing at a startup at a young age is really, really number one, it's lucky. Yeah. Because I would have taken a job at Johnson & Johnson and then been just as happy. But I don't think so. I never would have known. I wouldn't have known until maybe I spent a year or two, and I'd be like, this isn't for me. I don't want to move this slow, or I don't want to move this accurate, because speed and accuracy, a lot of times when you're in a startup company, you've got to balance those two in a way that solves an unmet need in the medical device or the clinical setting, and that's the balance. And then you've got the regulatory bodies that are making sure that everything's safe and effective. But as an engineer or as an inventor or as a product commercialization guy, you've got a lot of handles you're trying to turn all the time, and speed is really critical, especially when you're dealing with an emerging market like balloon angioplasty, because there were so many fast followers. And we were so far ahead of our competition. Yeah. We were so far ahead of our competition.
So I'm going to stop you, because the other thing I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, it normally takes, 7 to 9 years possibly for something to go from the research and development stage to the commercial market. But if you're in a startup and you're working on this agile, fast pace, not that restricts that pathway, but did you get to see a lot of your actual product that you conceived or was on a chalkboard all of a sudden in the marketplace?
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't. Back in the late '80s, it was. We were cranking stuff out every 18 months.
Gotcha.
So not me necessarily, but the product teams that we all were working in the R&D department, we were transferring stuff to manufacturing, getting it to commercial state, getting the 510K or the PMA approvals, and then just pummeling it to the market with just world-class sales and marketing efforts. And like all those things working together is kind of what you get to see when you're in that startup company. But nowadays, it can be epic for if it's a drug device combination. It's 7 years is probably best case.
Gotcha.
And so we got to see products move pretty quickly and then get to commercial, and then boom, you've got the next generation coming really quick behind that. It might be a small iteration of the diameter or the profile or a material or rated burst pressure or any number of factors. So it was really, that was really a great experience. And then I think that just, and then I knew every 2 years I was going to get bored. No matter what company I was at, I was going to get bored, because if I can accomplish something, you want to move on to the next thing. And I could have stayed and just tried to grow and move up the ladder. And but I think that startup taste was pretty sweet and pretty tasty.
So 1995, 1998, you land in Flagstaff, roughly?
97.
97,
Yeah.
close.
June of 97. Yeah.
And you're with a big company now.
Now I'm convinced that this entrepreneurial medical device company here in town that really was creating really cool stuff for patient care, and felt to me like a startup company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I interviewed probably 3 different times because they weren't sure about me. And maybe they were, but they didn't let on that they were sure about it. But you know, they just run you through the process, and it felt like the ACS days again. It felt like that startup, but it's a multi-billion-dollar company. Probably not at the time, but it's a huge organization. You have all the resources and all the capital to do everything you need to do, but they're empowering you to get the job done. Whether it's engineer the product, sell the product, license the product, evaluate it in the clinical setting, or whatever might be said. So I was really sold on that, and they were doing some acquisitions in California to bring in new technology. So it really felt like a great time to be working in this environment. And I was more sold on Flagstaff than I was the company. I mean, and I'd never been here.
Gotcha. You had been to Scottsdale.
I went to college.
Down
but
there.
I never,
Flagstaff.
on my weekends, I didn't hop on my motorcycle and drive up to Flagstaff. I was too busy enjoying Tempe.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, and then all of a sudden, the year 2000 happens.
Year 2000 happens, and my project had met some, we had met some challenges with potential strategic partners. It wasn't getting the commitment internally from the organization. Some of the pieces were moving back to Delaware, and there's just project decisions that just happen with any project. So I had met my partner at Machine Solutions, who was on the project team with us, who was a equipment engineer, who was so you have your equipment engineer, you have all the pieces on the team to be your own startup company.
Right.
And him and I just, I could see some real skill in what he would, when he would do a fixture or he would do equipment. He just had the ability to conceptualize and sit on he didn't have SolidWorks, but he could sit on his computer screen and in CAD, he could convert something into a working prototype like that. And it was always spot on. So just had an idea, wrote up a little sales sheet, and I laid it on the table and said, this is what we can do. We can start this company. We can make this make this shit work.
You were the visionary. Essentially.
I was the visionary for the business.
For the business,
Tom had the vision for the equipment and the product. So I knew if I could envision it, I could describe it to him and he could produce it.
And what did that look like to you at the time? So you've got this company idea, you think you've got the right team players, and you're going to sell them on this concept, but what kind of true leap was this for you? Was this in essence, I'm comfortable, I'm not going to eat for a year, and we're going to make this happen, or was this, we have to make this happen, like, let's all be in, guys, and we've got to jump and make this happen, and then if we got to...
It took me a while to convince. Yeah, and I only convinced one of the two. The other one decided it wasn't for him. But I only needed one. Like, I just needed one of them. So I started with 2 and figured if I can land one, I'm golden. But it was, we still had day jobs when we started, which I think for any entrepreneur, I mean, a couple things. If you can bootstrap till you can't, do it. And if you can work from 5 to midnight while you're still getting a paycheck, I mean, it helps you de-risk. Just like anything in life that you want to de-risk. And my level of de-risking is probably very different than a lot of others, because for me the risk part never scared me. It never scared me, because I had moved from company to company every 2 years. So I'm thinking, well, if this blows up in my face, so what, right? And I never let that thought enter my brain. But I think now, just talking to you about it, I would say, well, if that blows up in my face, I'm going to land somewhere else, and I'm going to do something else, right? And
is that youth? What is that? I used to have that, like, oh, whatever happened, there'll be something else.
I had 2 kids at the time.
That's incredible.
Yeah, 2 young kids, and
you're in a smaller market, even though you love the market. I mean,
it was the worst place to be.
Yeah,
because there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of evidence of people that have done this.
Right, and you can't just walk across the street.
And I heard about them, but everyone I heard about was like, well, they tried it, and here's what happened when they tried it, and it never was rosy. It was never good, but But I think that also motivated me. Like
Yeah.
it gave me the motivation to say, you know what, I think we can do this.
Do you have that gut thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? When you know you're on the right path, do you feel, is there something that happens to you mentally or
Oh,
physically
God, yeah.
that you're like,
Yeah,
this is right?
Yeah, we got this. And I think the fear helps too. I mean, if you're
Sure.
fearful, but if you bootstrap till you can't, and then you've got the ability to work that 5 to midnight shift and keep things rolling to the point where you can just flush out the market and at least understand who those customers are going to be. And then once you know that those customers are going to be active, paying, loyal, faithful customers, then all of a sudden that 8 to 5 thing becomes less critical.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to raise capital, which is
Right.
a godsend.
Yeah.
We just used our 5 to midnight shift to generate sales, to generate profit, to just keep pumping back into the business.
Yeah.
And when we finally took the plunge, we weren't taking salary cuts. We were maintaining our salary that we had prior to it. So
That's why I love this story, because you hear so many entrepreneurs, and the thought when people are selling this concept is you have to literally completely leave your corporate job, jump off the cliff, and live in a van, until you make money again. And I don't agree with that. And I understand the focus. I understand the passion and the focus, and no, I need to make this work. But I don't necessarily believe you have to starve yourself in order to.
No, we couldn't, because Tom and I both had young families.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
So the day job was critical to our ability to be successful, and I think we de-risked it.
Yeah.
So we de-risked it to the point where, we were going on sales calls. We were meeting with customers. We were getting purchase orders. So we were starting to get the wheels in motion to understand that, like, we have something. Like this thing that we had in this two pieces of paper. This can be real. And then we were just smart enough to listen to the customer's feedback when something didn't work, or maybe worked differently than what we expected mechanically, and then make quick adjustments, and just constantly make quick adjustments that. We were able to win the customer's business really quickly, and then I was not giving up. I was like, that was like, once you've jumped off, and now you're on your own, and now you're every morning you're controlling your own paycheck, and you're growing the business. Then it's very different, because you're not, you're going to, at all costs, you're going to keep those customers, and they were all-nighters. It's just the typical stuff.
Right.
Things are working, but we'll be, over our dead body, are we going to lose a multi-billion-dollar multinational company that thinks they need our equipment?
Yeah. So in your most layman terms, what problem did Machine Solutions solve at that time, or maybe still does?
Yeah. The most layman was we developed a universal tool for crimping stents, or integrating stents onto balloon catheters, and we did it with a budget that was fractions of what our ultimate customers, because we replaced the technology that they had spent years developing, like years developing. And I could talk for hours on the stuff I saw and the millions of dollars that were spent on absolutely brain dead ideas to crimp a stent onto a balloon catheter. And that was it. We added automation at a time when automation was just adding more assemblers. So we were able to add equipment solutions to their manufacturing floor. And that first product for crimping stents, or testing, or measuring catheter performance, those products were really well received by the marketplace. And once you see how well received it is, it just gives you that extra boost of adrenaline, right? Whether you're selling, or you're engineering, or you're marketing, or you're whatever, it just gives you that extra boost. Okay, we got this, and then it's on to the next, and then it's on to the next. And then we just listened. We listened to our customers and what areas were problematic. Like once we got, and this was the last step before it goes in the package.
Wow.
So they've invested every penny into this product, and the last thing they can have is poor yields. And we nailed it. And they would have paid whatever I told them it cost. And many times I thought I was pushing the limits of at least my brain's ability to understand value pricing.
But you were solving their problem, and it was a very specific problem, and they're willing to pay whatever, because you nailed it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're in Machine Solutions from 2000 to
2013.
all right. That's a long time for Dan.
That
right?
was my longest tenure, and it was very different because it was my company.
Yeah.
It was my baby. We were building something great. We were creating jobs in Flagstaff. We were solving problems for customers all over the world, from the Netherlands to Shanghai to Minneapolis to, I mean, all over. I mean, these customers all saw the value in the solution that we were providing. So, and then we just listened about the other things they needed help with, because they were, you know, they were open to share. I mean, this was this was revolutionary for them, because they could walk this into their management team and say, look how much I'm saving us and improving our margins on the sale of a bare metal stent or a drug-eluting stent. And it was huge numbers. So they were open to tell us what else they wanted us to fix.
For you to solve.
Yeah.
So so during the time, from the Machine Solution days, was there a moment at Machine Solutions when everything aligned, you guys achieved something awesome? There had to have been one of those moments where you just said, oh man, this is it.
Yeah.
Was there a particular moment that set that off, or was
It
it
was,
just a...
it was probably
multiple?
that first purchase order.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't even know that we needed to invoice. Like, we just thought we got a purchase order for $25,000.
Right.
That was huge. You know, I remember showing up on Tom's fax machine in his home office, and us running around like, what do we do now, right? Right? Because
this is real.
We were in a garage. We didn't have our first facility yet, and and then oh gosh, I don't know if I can say this on film, but we can always edit it out if we can't.
Okay.
But I mean, I remember them calling me after I quoted it and gave them a lead time and said, is there any way you can cut this lead time in half? And I'm talking to the customer, and I'm thinking, there's no way in hell can we cut this lead time in half. But if you pay us $50,000 instead of $25,000, we can get them to you in 4 weeks. And within an hour, I had a purchase order for 3 machines with full expedite charge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had to go and negotiate with Tom as to how we were gonna
pull this off.
How we're gonna pull it off. And
Yeah.
I never had a doubt that we would find a way to pull it off, and we did.
So let's talk about what you're doing now. So you after how many years again at Machine Solutions?
It was 13-ish. I mean, my learnings from 2007, 2008 taught me that when times got really, really good again, that I wasn't going to ignore potential exit opportunities.
Okay.
So we went from, we just got back to the point where we were doing 20+ million in revenue, and our earnings were strong, and the phone was ringing, and people wanted it, people were interested in a healthy company with 4 million in EBITDA. And so my learnings from the financial meltdown was that I was going to answer the phone, and if there's an opportunity to run a process to see if there's maybe an investment banking process to see if there's a potential buyer that meets our needs, because Tom and I we were young, we didn't want to sell, but I think 07, 08 kind of like when you're laying people off and some of your friends and they have families, and it's just that opportunity to kind of look and see what was out there was, I convinced him that we should at least consider it, because it's a grueling process to go through 8 management meetings over 3 months and entertain 8 different groups to sell your investment opportunity, and then start to get offers. And 07, 08 really caused us to, in 2012, 2011, 2012, when there were opportunities to potentially find a financial partner and take some chips off the table, that we were going to be smart enough about it, because our whole net worth had been built into Machine Solutions. And in good years we were able to pay ourselves. In bad years we struggled, but it's like any business owner in any company. At that point I felt like I had done pretty much all I could do with Machine Solutions. It wasn't as motivating as being in that garage and having absolutely no chance of success other than the one that you believe in the back of your head is going to get you there. And I think that was, and I don't know why I have that. I don't.
That's that gut thing, right?
But I don't know why. I don't like. There's a lot of times I don't want it.
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
don't want it. I want it to leave.
The hero's journey, right? The concept. You don't want to leave the thing, but you're challenged. You feel forced to move forward or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get out of that, and you say to yourself, I'm going to take a few years off, or I've got another hotbed idea?
No. No, unfortunately, I had a hotbed idea, and it was one of those that just, like, it was overpowering me.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I could make it work. I knew we could build a team and develop a technology, and I knew I couldn't do my day job and do that as well. So
And this is Simple Surgical.
this is Simple Surgical.
And the original concept was?
The original concept was a device-based treatment for high blood pressure. In 2013,
Okay.
11, 12, 13, so I mean, I was open with the private equity guys. I said, look, I have this other idea, so if we're going to do a deal, I want to make sure that you guys know that I also want to do this. And they were totally cool with it, because I think it's not the first time they've come across a founder that was creative and impatient and might have other things up his sleeve, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not.
So
I'm not that damn unique.
Yeah, so this idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously we've talked before, but the original concept that you had, something happened in the marketplace that provided you insight, call it luck, right?
Yeah.
But it hit you dead in the face without having to spend a lot of money? So what, I mean, is that essentially what happened?
Yeah, no, not exactly.
Okay,
But,
all right, well then I'm paraphrasing.
I mean, what hit me in the face was that I had this balloon project in the little startup in California that we never got to market for the indication that I had hoped to get it to market for.
That's right.
Because our clinical results just didn't line up. It needed to be canceled. Like, you got to kill those projects when they're, you learn in an animal model it's not working. It's not going to get better in a human.
Right.
So
and then like some research came out.
Research
about
came
that
out.
and
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
This is never going to work.
Yep.
That's
so
what I remember.
yep. So I had always, I didn't lose a lot of sleep about the product, but I knew how to deliver energy inside of an artery, and the idea of manipulating nerves in such a way that you could self-regulate high blood pressure, hypertension. There was a lot of studies coming out in 2009, and there were a lot of different ways of doing it, and everybody was going at it a little bit differently, and this hot balloon idea was still percolating in the back of my mind, and by the time we got the hot balloon idea prototyped and ready, another company had already come up with the exact same thing and sold it for $100 million. So I was, we had all our patents filed,
Right.
And then the market leader published a clinical trial that showed that not only did they not downregulate blood pressure, but they upregulated it in the patients they treated, whereas the control patients were downregulating.
Right.
So it's like something's not working.
Right.
Like the technology's moving faster than what the treatment they're trying to deliver. So it just put a really, really black eye in the world of renal denervation and treatment of high blood pressure. I don't think it was warranted necessarily, because I think the idea of regulating sympathetic nerves to downregulate blood pressure is absolutely sound. It's just how you do it and how you do it perfectly in each patient. And like any technology, it's going to take years and years to perfect. So, so the clinical trial got canceled. The company had spent billions on an acquisition. They brought everything back to the drawing board, and then a little startup in Menlo Park called Simple Surgical is left with, a few $100,000 in the bank and an engineering team with direction on a product that just it really wasn't gonna get us where we need. We didn't have enough capital to get there, nor could I go out and raise capital, because everybody saw the data, and the last thing they want to invest in is a failed clinical trial or a technology that's aimed at improving on minor details of a failed clinical trial. So like the perfect storm in a negative way hit us, and we just looked for ways to repurpose the technology to treat something within the body. We didn't know we'd find anything, but we looked at everything from varicose veins to pulmonary vein isolation to applications in the brain, and we settled on the treatment of esophageal cancer using our microwave ablation antenna and balloon technology, and just ran as fast as we can to not waste all our money that we had left. So we moved to the incubator, which is where we sit today.
That's right.
We moved here, shut down the Menlo Park office, set up a small office in Sacramento to do electrical and antenna and generator work, and then did our device prototyping and development here at the incubator. Had some great monthly rates on our space. and talent. The talent
Right.
was willing to come with
And
us.
did you tap into NAU at all, or mainly just bring your own
We
talent
brought our own talent, and then we tapped into some NAU engineering talent.
So that's happening. So this continue. I mean, again, it's a long pathway for that, right? This
Long
device.
pathway. Yep,
And
yep.
so then all of a sudden, a new problem exists.
New problem exists.
From a client standpoint, from a client-facing standpoint.
Client-facing standpoint. So I'm trying to find, now that we're pivoting to this esophageal cancer, Barrett's esophagus, you know, we got a whole new supply chain and a whole new area. We got to find people that can do the balloons and the catheters and the antennas and all the pieces that go into it and the handles. And I worked for probably 3 months trying to find a supplier of a balloon sized properly and designed properly for working in the esophageal region. And I mean, I had enough contacts at that point in my career that I knew who to call. Like, I knew exactly who to call, and I've known them personally and professionally, so I knew, you know, I knew if I made a couple phone calls, I could get this project completed. And to my surprise, nobody really wanted to deal with small volume prototypes of balloons. You know, they wanted the $1 million project, and we could give them a $1 million project, but
Not
we
yet.
got to get it regulatory approved. But I can't get you to $1 million if I can't get these first 5 built.
Right, right.
And so at that point, I just decided to do it ourselves. Like, buy a machine, get the capital, start developing the balloon. Because I knew enough about balloons to be dangerous, and I knew I could, with the team we had, we could develop the balloon. So we brought the balloon technology into Simple Surgical to really help us get that prototype through the preclinical work. And then, I mean, I'm out in the morning on a run, and you know, when I don't like running, so I'm always thinking about stuff, you know, and hoping I'm not going to fall and sprain an ankle again. But I'm just thinking, like, I just started thinking, well, I mean, we're not the only company that needs help with balloons, and went back to the office that day, which is right there, and just made a couple calls, and like instantly, like, oh yeah, we need, you know, if you can provide us a PBX balloon X by X, you know, we'd love to have the opportunity to buy them from you. And so just at that point, I launched Poba Medical, and had at the time had a technically capable co-founder who was going to move to Flagstaff and to kind of help us launch the whole technology. I was going to handle the business, and so yeah, so that's how that became Poba Medical. And you know, again, quickly we moved from here to the accelerator, and we built a nice little clean room, and we just kind of, you know, gradually outgrew our space. And
in like a small amount of time, too, right?
Probably 18 months, yeah.
Yeah, that's a small amount of time, Dan.
Yeah, 18 months, yeah.
When you compare it to Simple Surgical, which is still in the R&D and growing, and then this is like shot up, hockey stick. So I don't pretend to think, honestly, Dan, that we as a incubator really put any fire in your belly whatsoever. You were on this journey. We had a facility. It was luck, if you will, and the marriage happened. But now, since you've been here and you've been in Flagstaff, you've had these successful runs at being a startup founder, you are doing mentoring and you are helping us with our entrepreneurs, which I totally appreciate. Do you think that's fun? By the way, is it fun for you to dive in? Does that fuel another part of you?
Yeah, it's not as aggressive a fuel. You know, it can't be, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, it's definitely rewarding. You know, I mean, but I've got 8 20-somethings that are under my control right now at Poba that are kind of feeling that same fire. So I get to sort of mentor them and see them develop as engineers or operations guys or marketing guys or assemblers or engineers or whatever. So, but yeah, it's and that's my sphere, right? I got that down, and so being able to see things outside of that sphere is really, really rewarding.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to plant anything in your head, but I think we know that we have something special here too, something that we offer that's a little unique from other incubators or accelerators across the country. But man, I certainly appreciate you and what you do for us, and even you're telling your story, and and sharing it often. And we talked about Joe Mullings, but last year, you even brought Joe Mullings had this concept, or you actually helped
Apparently,
him birth this concept.
Yeah, I guess I did help him birth the concept because I just remember being tired of seeing the Bay Area on every single video post that he was putting out.
Right.
And I just was having a bad day. And I just decided that I was going to pick up the phone and tell him I was pissed off about seeing it.
Right. And it's time to see other places.
I mean, do you know what we do here in Flagstaff? I think
Right.
is, how I started the conversation. And I mean, I think he trusts me enough to say, maybe there is something to it. Maybe the masses, because he reaches the masses. And I mean, think about now, right?
I know, that's why I'm bringing it up.
So
right
think
now.
about now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm saying, hey Joe, how about you take a look at Flagstaff and see what we do here and see if that could be told in an interesting way
Right.
to help you birth this true future idea.
Mm-hmm.
And said, look, you need to show more than just somebody driving down the streets in San Francisco on their bike with a backpack,
Mm-hmm.
right? At dawn,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a trolley car going by, and the Bay Bridge in the background.
Yeah.
And
There are other places that do incredible things.
there's other
Yeah.
places that do it, and I think there's a lot of momentum to say that his ability with True Future to show things like Boston and Flagstaff and Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and yada 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 that are going on. I think it's making a much better story and a much better brand for what he's creating. So maybe, I had a little piece.
Yeah, and ironically, I mean, it's the reason why W. Gore has a place here, because at one point, all these folks come here and they were like, wait,
Yeah.
I like this lifestyle.
Yeah.
What can we build? What can we create?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, the more we can get that out, because it is about lifestyle and life balance, and we don't have an hour commute.
Yeah.
We have a 5-minute commute. We have 20 minutes to snowball, to ski. The funny thing is, I don't do any of this.
I know you don't. I know, that's why
I just eat and drink. That's all
yeah.
I do. So
Which at a point we had some pretty good options there too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Before February.
Yeah, so I think, I appreciate you, because I think you're also an example of the type of, we want more Dans to move here, and start things.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, it is
Maybe.
true. It is true.
Yeah. Hopefully I can spawn some Dans here in the next few startups. There's some really smart people that I'm working with every day that one of them has to have that fire burning in their belly. I don't think they all do, but one of them has to.
Yeah, I know. I see it. I can see the globe, and it says that of your employees, there are going to be several people that, in a positive way, jump and start something.
Impact and impact Flagstaff.
Yeah, and impact it.
I mean that just tells me that I'm hiring the right people.
Right.
And there's no bad feelings. I mean, I went through that when I had to leave the big comfort of the big company, and I don't, obviously you have to protect your intellectual property and all your trade secrets and all the stuff you need to protect and stuff people are obligated to when they sign an employment agreement. But if I've got entrepreneurs that can go off and start the next great device company or orthopedic company or healthcare app or telemedicine app or whatever keeps them up at night. I mean, and all these guys know where Moonshot is already because we lived here for a time. So I think that's the benefit where they kind of saw my path and our path, and now I could see some of them retrenching back in. I couldn't tell you who they are yet.
Right. But they're there.
But they're there. Yeah, I think they're there.
So last question: do you have a new idea percolating? The next thing for Dan.
Well, the next thing for Dan, I've got so much. I got so much on my plate right now with Poba Medical and Simple Surgical and Experience Medical, which is our latest startup, which is an ear, nose, and throat platform company looking at utilization of balloons in the ear, nose, and throat applications. So things like airway support, snoring, excessive bleeding, lots of things that are treated but aren't treated as uniquely as I think we can. So I randomly partnered with a ENT physician, 35 years experience. He filed patents on his concepts. They're all balloon based. He got introduced to Poba and Dan, and we've been busy just capitalizing the company, bootstrapping. I mean, we've bootstrapped to 3. We've got 3 products right now,
Right.
and we haven't spent that much money getting them to where we are. But we've got to now capitalize the company so we can take them to the next level. And I think that's my next. I mean, there's probably others that are that are percolating, but at this point, there becomes bandwidth issues, and I've got a great team at Simple Surgical. I've got a great team at Poba Medical.
Yeah.
But with the events around the world the last 10 months, I can't lose focus and think that my team is capable of going it alone. I mean, some of them might want me to let them go it alone, but I think to a man they would all say that we're better off with Dan sitting here every day pushing us and driving our customer adoption and building our business, because at the end of the day they're all shareholders. So they understand, one thing about millennials and early 20-somethings is, and I don't know if it's Robin Hood or it's family upbringing, but they understand the value of equity, and they understand the value more than the paycheck. So they're super jazzed about having a piece of the action, it worked beautifully at Machine Solutions, because every person that came in, from the office manager to the machinist to the head of sales, they all own a piece of the company through stock warrants or equity or stock options or whatever it was. And I mean, I was a firm believer that was a driver as to effort and motivation, and it proved out perfectly. And nothing's changed in 2020. The same motivations and the same decisions and moves that people make as employees are very different when they have a piece of the action.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they got a paycheck, right? But I don't think any of them think about the paycheck as much as they think about the fact that they own a piece of Poba Medical or they own a piece of Simple Surgical. And if they execute and we all execute and we deliver, that there's going to be a value creation event that could be life-changing, or it could just be a nice piece to allow them to come move back to the Moonshot.
Yeah. Well, let me say, I appreciate the fact that you're sitting here. You make me a better executive as well.
Well,
and
that's good to
you
hear.
make this incubator
I'm
a better
happy
place.
to come up and tell the story, and
I
I
know,
love the green room.
Well, thanks. And I know Flagstaff appreciates you sharing the story. And like I said, let's get more of you in this town to do something amazing. So thanks.
Let's do it.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right.
All
That's
right.
it.
That was easy.
Hello there. Welcome again to another evening of Makers and Shakers. This is our happiest hour, and tonight I'm especially happy because we have one of my favorite local entrepreneurs. He also happens to be on my board, so there's nothing wrong with that at all. But his name is Dan Kasprzyk, and I have to say, Dan, first of all, I want to have you say hello to our audience.
Hello.
Thank you.
Great to have everybody here with us tonight.
That's awesome, Dan. I want to apologize for the fact that I think I set this all up. I said earlier this morning that you have so many companies that you're running. You're constantly working, it seems to me, and I don't know how you find the time to sleep. And so then all of a sudden I noticed tonight in our video we were missing the Z's out of your name.
Yes.
Yeah,
I didn't even catch that. I've seen it spelled so many different ways that as long as there's not a few too many vowels, we're good.
well, with a name like Hathcock, I don't argue with that. So we're all good. Yeah. So we have had several questions come in, but I want to start off this evening because I know we have a lot to talk about, and that is to say that one of the favorite things that we talked about was, or one of my favorite things we've talked about that I see a lot of founders having issues with is hiring. Finding the right kind of people to hire. Last Monday night, Momo, the founder of Viam, spoke to his hiring process, his hiring insights. And I just want to know, you've had some great, obviously successful companies that you've launched. What's been your trick to hiring the right kind of people at the right time?
Well, I think I probably have to owe this one to Joe Mullings because he's a big proponent of hiring the best athlete. And I think that's something that I've always held true to. And when times are tough, I'm not opposed to spending money on external recruiters to find the right talent because these people do this for a living and they've done it their entire careers, and the paybacks are just incredible. So so many people get caught up in penny pinching during the recruitment phase, and it's the worst place to penny pinch. And I've found guys at coffee shops, Whole Foods. These are guys that currently work for me. So I think it really, you got to just pay attention in your general life, especially in a small town like Flagstaff. There's so darn much talent that literally wanders around the same coffee shops, the same restaurants when the restaurants are open.
Yeah.
And then just best athlete. I think if there's engineering or marketing or sales talent that happen to come to NAU on a scholarship, a full ride, and that athletic drive is going to carry through to their careers 100% of the time.
Gotcha. So I want to remind our viewers, so right now you can email us at info@moonshotaz.com. We've got the Moonshot staff online. They trigger this little device in my hand so I can get your questions and ask them directly for Dan. And so I actually do have a few that came in during our interview. And they want to know, this is a good question. They want to know, how do you balance speed and accuracy with your company today? And I think they're talking about product development, I'm assuming.
Okay.
So, your world is a little different than some entrepreneurs, because whereas my world doesn't necessarily save lives, yours does, right? So when you're looking at that balance of product development, how do you balance that? Talk about that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Me personally, I always err on the speed side, just because we're most of these technologies and devices are preclinical. So we're not even testing these in humans yet. So we're at that preclinical state. So it's a great question. It's a difficult balance, and we face the same thing at Poba Medical when we're getting requests for these just crazy tolerances on balloons that our engineering team is looking at and asking, like, how in the world are we gonna achieve this this specification or compliance or burst pressure range? And I always err on speed, because I think if we can quickly get it in their hands, we can then move on, and they can move on to the next design decision or device decision related to their technology. So I don't ever ignore accuracy or quality, because that's a key piece to everything we do, especially when you're going through approvals and getting these devices ready for first-in-man testing or in human clinical trials. But it's speed first for me.
Do you ever hear, I mean, speaking of speed first and solving major issues, do you ever hear from actual patients who have your products have helped their lives with, or?
I mean, we have over the years on other products, but esophageal cancer is a growing concern around the world. So I mean, I think when we post a simple video on a 30-second video on LinkedIn, I'll hear from people within different societies and patients that have had esophageal cancer treated through esophagectomies, and really promoting the idea of having something that's minimally invasive and can stop that spread from early to stage 2 or stage 3 esophageal cancer. So we're kind of a step removed, but many of our customers are actively involved in everything from treating atrial fibrillation to neurovascular aneurysms, and they're treating patients day in, day out with their technology. So I'm sure they get the brunt of the successes when they're truly saving lives.
Yeah, I would think so too, and I think I remember even going and talking about Joe Mullings, right? You guys had a great interview on his True Future TV, and he was actually a heart surgeon. I mean, he had a heart attack, right, at some point, and he was actually saved by the devices that W.O. Gore has made, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't that a story that?
Yeah. I think it was congestive heart failure when he was on a bike ride in somewhere in Italy or Europe, and those are life-changing. Those are life-changing events, and I think for him it was really the moment where he kind of tied technology to his own physical existence.
Yeah. And so now, while we're on the topic of Joe, not to throw him under the bus anymore, but it was your idea to bring him here because Flagstaff has this incredible lifestyle, and you wanted to see it highlighted more for the talent and the type of town that we have. I'm wondering if to me, lifestyle has to be the key ingredient to acquire obviously successful entrepreneurs, but also to get more Dans involved, to get more interest. And do you have a particular, like, if you moved here early on, but if you weren't here, where would you be? If you weren't in Flagstaff, where else would you be?
I'd be in Boulder.
You would be, okay. And so why Flagstaff? Just curious.
Well, I mean, it was a job for me. I mean, I mean, the W.O. Gore opportunity was an incredible opportunity for me at that point in my career, and like we talked about in the interview, it was you're going to go work for a multi-billion-dollar company, but it's going to feel like a startup, and that's the calling card that Gore brings to all their new hires, is that you've got this freedom and flexibility in your work-life balance, but you get to live in Flagstaff if you're working for Gore Medical. So I wouldn't, I think for me the job chose Flagstaff, and I fell in love with it, and then having your own company here, you really do tie your hands as it relates to moving to a coast or moving to a different mountain town. But I would say it would have been Boulder.
So I guess what I'm really asking too is, what is it of the lifestyle? Are you a skier? Are you a runner? You talked about not being a fan of running, so I'm assuming that's not the reason.
I love getting up early in the morning and going on a trail run. Yeah. I mean, I think that's far more enjoyable than going on a run down a straight flat street.
Yeah.
I love mountain biking. I've enjoyed skiing. I like proximity to the desert and proximity to year-round summer. Mm-hmm. As I get older, that becomes an incredibly attractive piece to life, because there are times in the spring in Flagstaff where you can look outside and see the trees bent over sideways because the wind's decided to blow for 3 straight days. So,
right.
I mean, and for me, the lifestyle that I've created around startup companies is what drives me the most. And I know everybody that I work with, they have likes and interests outside of work, but in a startup company, your main existence happens to be work, and
Yeah.
and everybody gets to pull in that same direction. And I think that's what creates the winners from the losers.
Yeah. Well, and I think we as an incubator, when we go into other communities, when we talk to other towns, we're looking for people like you that really want to just stay there, but create something, make something happen. We're not necessarily, I mean, it's lovely to have an occasional unicorn, but, come through your door for the ego's sake, but really the people who are creating jobs in these smaller communities where lifestyle is a platform, that's the key. That's the key to economic development and economic building.
No, and I think my track record coming into Flagstaff wasn't good. I mean, I had 2 years in Columbus, Ohio, 3 years in Mountain View, California, 3 years in Colorado Springs, 3 years in Lehigh Valley. So I had like my longevity was about 3 years.
Well, awesome. So let's flip gears a little bit and listen to some questions from our audience. What's your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur?
Gosh, there's a lot. I think at this point in my career, this is probably going to sound a little weird, but I think it's controlling my exit. Like knowing that no one's going to tell me when it's time. I get to decide. Like at my age and my place within my career, I think being an entrepreneur now allows me to decide when it's time.
Right.
Not some big corporation, not some. It's just I'm just gonna decide it. Early on, it was just purely the drive of accomplishing something that everybody said couldn't be accomplished. I mean, that's just people tell you can't do this. My natural reaction was, well, watch me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the part of being an entrepreneur that's super exciting, and seeing the looks on the faces of your coworkers when you're building a team out and you're doing. I mean, that's the friendships you get to create and the lives you get to change is really the most rewarding thing about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I totally agree. So here's a great one, in fact. So COVID, all of a sudden, here we are in the middle of it. I believe, and it looks like this question is right in line with this, that your engagement with customers has been very trade show heavy in the past. Now with COVID, what does Poba do? What does Poba plan to do? What has Poba been doing this year to touch those customers?
Yeah, no, our trade shows really are the lifeblood for, it was true at Machine Solutions, it's true at Poba, it's true at Simple Surgical. So it's really that in-person customer engagement that allows you to tell your story, secure orders, build your business, reinvest in your business. So, one of the things that's really been helpful for us this year is we partnered with 3 gals that started a company called Chamfer. And it's an online marketplace for selling anything helping medical device catheter engineers through the prototyping phase. So I think we were their second or third principal to sign up. They have, I don't even know how many they have now, but they have 20, 30 plus principals that are selling on their e-commerce platform. So they built an Amazon-like service for medical device catheter engineers where we have over 70 different SKUs of different balloons that we've taken the time to manufacture and put on the shelf and help these early stage prototypers and early stage catheter engineers move through that preclinical or clinical process. So it's really been key for us this year. Is it's given us the ability to engage with customers. It's not moving the bottom line, unfortunately, because you're talking 5 or 10 balloons versus 10,000. But we've got 70 plus SKUs. We'll have close to 100 SKUs by the end of the year. We've gone from, I think we sold 17 units in 2019, and we're gonna be close to 100 this year. So
wow.
It's been massive. It's been massive growth, and I think each one of those unique balloon sales allows us to grab that customer, either for future development or just solve a problem that they currently have. So that's been key for us. So the timing with Chamfer, which started right around the same time as Poba, and me randomly meeting them at a trade show in Minneapolis and learning about what they were trying to do, and I mean, I never even thought twice about whether or not the investment in joining their team and joining their e-marketplace was something that we should consider. It was just, I mean, it was a no-brainer. Obviously, I didn't know about COVID back in 2018 or 19 or the threat of COVID, but I mean, it's been an awesome piece for us to really get customer engagement in a time when I can't go out and shake a customer's hand.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I saw, Dan, with you especially, is that you were an early adopter to using video, utilizing video. And I think you've done that through your Balloon U video sequence, your video shows that you have. And what made you think of that type of engagement? Because honestly, that's not a go-to for your sector typically, right? For what you're doing, to all of a sudden think, you know what, I'm going to bring more of my story, more of what we do to video. But but you took hold of it, and you've been utilizing it really well, and I'm sure that has also helped during COVID.
No, it has. Yeah, it definitely has. And I think, you know, I would stop for coffee on my way up to NACET at the tourist home, and you know, some days were early, you know, and there'd always be, you know, the same barista who was making the best cappuccino in town, and I just happened to, you know, one morning he was talkative, I was talkative. I learned about what he was doing at NAU and what he was interested in doing in his career. And he was an athlete, and he was here on a scholarship, and he was, you know, rapidly advancing through his career while he ran track and field. So clearly he's got the initiative and the drive. And, you know, I just learned about some of the things he was doing with respect to social media and digital marketing and video, and offered him an internship.
Yeah.
And, you know, that, I mean, I think that same day. You know, from there on, he's just really helped me push some of my ideas, because he's got the, you know, he's got that ability as it relates to digital and social media to help us pump out videos, you know, push us hard on original content, and really drive the branding that just becomes a key piece to an early stage company, especially when you're, you know, everybody's forced to stay home.
Yeah. So here's another question.
Coffee on the way to work.
So what's his name? Tell us his name, right? You can share.
Lorenzo Johnson.
Okay, I might have talked over you.
iCovey Marketing.
Gotcha. Thank you. Is he here in Flagstaff, or is he elsewhere?
He is now down in Tucson.
Okay.
But he still has local companies like Machine Solutions and Poba Medical and Simple Surgical as his clients, and he's an entrepreneur, so he's spreading his net as wide as he can to grow his business. But yeah, he's moved down to Tucson.
So talk to me about where you are currently with your balloon manufacturing capacity today, but also back up and tell me where you were when you started at here on our campus at Moonshot at NACET.
Yeah, well, I would say on the early days back in the incubator lab, you know, we could probably produce, on a good day, 50 balloons.
Okay.
Like if we had the recipes and it was an easy balloon, we could probably produce 50 balloons a day. We just purchased a piece of capital equipment that gives us some automation capability around blow molding of balloons. So coupling that machine, which is not yet in service, it's just recently been received. So we're in the process of bringing it in service. But we're at the point now where, with 2 shifts of manufacturing, we can produce thousands.
Wow.
You know, couple thousand balloons with this new machine. You know, we're in a really good position to continue to scale our output to meet the needs of customers that, you know, many of our customers, now that we're 3 years old, and customers we worked with 3 years ago, and we've helped them get through the regulatory process, they're eventually going to get to commercialization. And when they get to commercialization, their volumes go from 100 to 100,000 in some cases.
Wow.
We've really got to be ready to embrace that and really, you know, work hand in hand with them to not only meet their volumes, but meet their pricing requirements. And that's a hard piece to being in Flagstaff. We don't have labor rates of Mexico or Costa Rica or Mumbai. We've got labor rates that are competitive with other big cities. So we've got to continue to work through that. But I'm confident the cost of labor in Flagstaff isn't going to be a deterrent from us growing our business. And when it becomes a deterrent, and we have a $1 million or million balloon a year customer, we'll make business decisions to maximize our profits on that project. So yeah, it's we're in a unique spot, but we've got a 20,000 square foot facility that we occupy about half of.
Okay.
And the other half is still empty and available to us. So we've got a great relationship with our landlord, and he's been kind enough to kind of give us sort of that first right of refusal, so that as we do need to triple our clean room space, we don't have to move to another facility. So yeah, I think we're in a great spot, and we haven't hit the kind of growth that we thought we would in 2020 back in January.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we're that unique. I think it's it's the story of 2020, and we've survived. We haven't had any furloughs. We haven't had we haven't laid off any employees. We're keeping our workforce intact. We're adding to our capital equipment, and we want to be able to produce. At some point, we want to produce tens of thousands of balloons a day.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I've got another live question for you, and that is, what popular? Okay, yeah, we actually had this one before too. I love this one. What popular entrepreneur advice do you disagree with?
Popular entrepreneur advice do I disagree with? Oh gosh, I think it's the misconception about the path to riches.
Okay.
It's just not a. It's a nice reward at the end of the day if you're successful driving value and selling your company, but that's not the there might be a driver at some point in your life because of things that you made in your life, but the true entrepreneur is really driven by the ability to mentor and train and build value within the business, and then give back.
I love that.
Whether he's giving back to his employees or giving back to the community or whatever. So I think the the path to riches, I think, is kind of the misnomer that I come up with. I'm sure there's others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with. I mean, I tend to sort of I tend to navigate down a different path, and I think the other thing that I completely disagree with is the celebration of successful capital raise. I mean,
yes.
Oh my God, venture capital just pumped $30 million into my idea and my company. Like, who gives a shit?
Right.
That's not. I mean, sure, you raised $30 million and you should celebrate it, but celebrate the successful first clinical trial or first in man study, or celebrate that. I mean, I think so many people get hung up on, and a lot of it has to do with the tech industry and raising hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars for your ideas, and everybody gets excited, and sure, I mean, what happened today, right? DoorDash went public on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange, and their stock moved from $70 to $180 a share.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they should
Yeah.
celebrate that. They're, but you come back and look in a year, is it still going to be $180 a share?
Right. My favorite thing that you said in our interview was the minimizing of the risk.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a misnomer too, that in order to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to just give up everything and dive head in. And you stated, and I believe, that you can work a day job and pull midnight hours and build this company up until it can support. I think you said you had children at the time, and living, and your partner did as well. Your co-founder did. So I think that's a key. I love the fact that we're demystifying that piece a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that was a key piece, because I didn't, we didn't have the capital for us to dive in. We had a bootstrap to the point where we could build something that was sustainable, and then be willing and able to reinvest in what we had just created. So versus just paying ourselves fat salaries.
Right.
I mean, that would have been fun.
Yeah. yeah.
But yeah, I think I like to think about bootstrapping until you can't, and I think that's you'll know when you can't bootstrap anymore. I mean, it's not like, if you're smart about your idea and your business and your true passion, you're going to know when it's time to either bring on additional expertise or bring on additional capital, or carve off some of your equity in exchange for some cash to allow you to do other things. But I never, I think the thing that you have to realize, though, is when once you've gone from that bootstrapping and that day job to your new job, is how much more you can get out of yourself because you don't have that day job. I think I never really appreciated that. Like, I always thought I was giving it all as a second job because I knew that's what I wanted to do. But I mean, it's amazing once you're completely unencumbered by that other piece, which is really helping you get to the goal line that you want to get to in entrepreneurship. It's amazing how much more ceiling there is that you never knew.
Yeah. So I'm going to take one more live question. And this actually relates to, again, your employees and how you incentivize them. You talk about it a little bit maybe in the interview, but you know, how soon and how often do you even offer equity? Or, you know, what are your rules in your mind as far as setting someone up for success within your company?
Well, you know, I think it's something that has to be widespread across the employee base because I think it's such a motivator in 2020 as it relates to total comp. And unfortunately, we can't replace equity. We can't pay lower salaries because we're offering equity. I mean, it would be great if that worked, but the med device industry in Flagstaff is very competitive for talent. Very, very competitive, and it's going to be more competitive in 5 years. So, you know, I think we look at the equity as a piece of the compensation that allows employees to really have something that they can strive to achieve. And they don't, you know, at Machine Solutions, nobody knew what the stock was worth. Nobody knew what it could be worth. We were privately held. We issued very few shares. We kept it tightly controlled. And then when we got to the point where we were able to exchange equity in exchange for a private equity transaction, then everybody knew exactly what it was worth. But I don't have like a certain entry requirement. I mean, I think if somebody's key to your plan and key to your path, hey, they should have equity because the guy next to him is going to have equity. And these guys know each other. They you know, whether their families hang out together or they bike ride together or they climb together or they do whatever. It's, you know, maybe they play fantasy football together. But it's get them all aligned. And you know, we're such a young, hungry team that I don't have like a senior executive level and a mid-management level and then an engineering level. I mean, we're still, you know, 16 to 18 employees, and you know, many of our staff is working in the clean room day in, day out. So yeah, I think it's also one of those things where I'm not that smart. If it worked before, it's going to work again.
Right. Well, I disagree with you, but all right.
Yeah.
All right. So my last question is one I've been asking everyone, and that is, if you weren't doing this today, what would you be doing? What other path would you be on?
Oh, shit. Oh, God. If I wasn't doing this today, what would I be doing? Oh, God. There was a time in my life where I would say I would be a ski bum.
Okay.
In a Colorado mountain town. But that would have been so damn boring. I mean, my mind wouldn't have allowed it. My body would have allowed it. My mind wouldn't have allowed it.
Gotcha.
No, I would have been bombing hills and thinking about something and probably broke my neck.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to take that as the answer. And I have to say, Boulder is missing out, but Flagstaff is so thankful and grateful that you're here and you decided to not just be a ski bum. That's what I have to say. And I have to tell our viewers again, this has been an awesome night again with Mr. Dan Kasprzyk. And if you want to learn more about him, you spell his name with a Z. And you look him up on LinkedIn. He's a great mentor and a coach here at Moonshot as well. So if you want to become a member of our Incubator Accelerator program, we can connect you as well with Dan and several other fantastic founders and mentors here in Flagstaff. So again, Dan, I thank you for your time this evening. If our viewers have more questions after we air this, please, again, just email us at info@moonshotaz.com. I will forward your questions to Dan, and we'll get an answer back to you. It's been another incredible night. Tomorrow, we have some more incredible workshops. We're going to listen to, I think, a workshop from Dustin Moore with SunWest Bank. We've got our own Amanda Kristinat teaching us about getting grant funding. And then for the keynote, I'm thrilled to have Mr. Steve Reese. He is the Chief Information Officer for the Phoenix Suns. An incredible guy, an incredible storyteller, and you're going to learn a lot from his keynote. And then we're going to do the same live Q&A tomorrow night. So again, I thank you all again for joining us tonight. It's been awesome. It's been awesome to see Dan, and that is it for us. Good night.
Video production services for makers and shakers provided by Moonshot Studios, powered by PDR Digital Media.